It's 48 hours to evacuation. How good has forecasting become at pinpointing location and destruction?
What does the weather and the earth do to human infrastructure?
Chuck Watson is a geophysical hazard researcher and research scientist from UCF with some startling news.
Because of the geography of the Georgia and southern South Carolina coast, we could experience the second worst storm surge anywhere in the world.
That is correct. We are the second worst place in the world. This is bad news. You can see, actually, that's almost the Floyd track.
To prove that out, Watson goes back to the hurricanes of the late 19th century. Hurricanes that also influenced the thinking of Colonel Neil Baxley of Beaufort Emergency Management.
That's where the town of Pacific was at in 1893 when the Great Storm of 93 hit. 500 people died in Pacific in 1893. Look how far that is from the ocean.
Yep.
Storm surge killed them. That's why we evacuate.
Watson goes back to 1881 for damage estimates on a Category 3 storm that hit Hilton Head directly.
You're putting Hilton Head underwater. 7 meters.
Oh my gosh.
25 feet of water puts Hilton Head completely under. You look at Georgetown, you look at the area south side Savannah, Oglethorpe Mall, underwater.
Windsor Forest is down
Windsor
under.
Forest, underwater. All the way up, well up the Savannah River, underwater. Because remember, that water that's coming down the Savannah River has got to go somewhere. Mm-hmm. And if this is blocked off by 25 feet of water at the entrance, it's going to back way up for miles. So a lot of Effingham actually starts to get flooding.
Now, obviously, you said the worst case scenario of the storm just a little bit further south, it would start backing up the Ogeechee River.
Exactly. That would put this right into the mouth of the Savannah River.
If such a storm followed the same path, the financial impact is enormous.
$1.5 billion worth of damage in Beaufort County.
Alone?
Largely Hilton Head, alone.
Wow.
Another $1 billion plus damage in the Savannah area.
Hurricane Floyd dominates storm thinking in the southeast, and it is the Floyd data that Watson uses to guide his forecasting.
It's Sunday morning, 2 days before evacuation.
So this is basically the eye of the storm.
That is the eye of the storm. In fact,
all the way up.
We can go look at it from directly overhead.
Oh, wow.
There's your eye. This is technology, this is capability we didn't have in 1999. So we would have been able to do a better job of forecasting where Floyd was going than we could have in 99. The problem is still not quite good enough when you're talking about the fact you've got to get people out of Savannah because it takes time.
Is the margin of error any greater or any less?
It's actually about 20% better than it was in 1999. Flip it sideways, you can start to see how this is lopsided. At this point in the storm's history, it was actually being pushed this way. So at that point, that's why the storm was moving towards us. We can move this forward to a couple days later. Look at how different that is. You notice the pattern shifted, and it's much more being blown.
It was over here before.
Right.
Now it's over here.
Exactly. If you remember, that's exactly what Floyd did. It was coming towards us, then it got picked up by a little system that was coming down and pushed, not very much, but just enough to nudge it away from us.
Watson noted that the National Hurricane Center track predicted a much more threatening path for Floyd and a higher intensity.
The Hurricane Center track is what they call the forecast of least regret, which is not a bad thing. They're taking into account how long it's going to take people to evacuate and how long they have to fix the mistake if the track goes someplace else.
Does this model also show the wobbling effect of the storm as it's forecast to move?
Yeah, a little bit of a wobble. You're starting to get into pretty bad conditions here. And we can't forecast that 4 days out. If it wobbles this way, which is within the realm of reason, these people will not have as much time to evacuate. So if they're wrong this way, they have time to fix the mistake. If they're wrong this way, there's no time to fix the mistake.
If you are wrong in a hurricane projection, you're dead.
Exactly.
The certainty of all hurricane patterns is compromised by the always present possibility of a wobble.
Hurricane Center's role, emergency management's role, is public safety.
But Watson points out that evacuation is not the no-brainer it may appear to be.
We think it's about $10 million per mile of populated coast. To evacuate Chatham County, just Chatham County, is probably about a $100 million hit. We did a study for a tropical storm that hit Florida, and more people were killed in the evacuation in traffic accidents than would have been killed if everybody had just stayed put.
Nonetheless, Watson says that if an evacuation order is issued, you should follow it, regardless of the improved forecasting technology.
The problem is it wasn't good enough to change anybody's decision making. So even with today's models, with a situation like Floyd, if you're Clayton Scott sitting there having to decide, you've got better information, but there's still so much uncertainty in it, you're still going to have to evacuate. I have the most sophisticated computer models. I've got track information. I actually have information on tracks and data before the Hurricane Center gets it, because it's the research that I do. If they call for a local evacuation here, even if I disagree with the forecast, I'm still going to go.